Hi, I'd like to talk about the 8 steps that you can do to help your loved one after you die. Most people don't realize everything that's involved and what could be done to save your loved ones while they're going through grief. Hello everyone, my name is pjsthriving and my channel is normally about my journey to lose 100 pounds the healthy way. But most of my followers already know that January 20th, my brother passed away from COVID-19. And he was 50 years old. And he had, this past year, had purchased a little home, had a car, had a little bank account. Nothing worth riches or anything. But the one thing that I asked him and helped him do was just a simple little will. And when he had the closing on his little home, we had it notarized by that attorney. And that saved us some work. But the rest of the stuff he didn't have done. Nothing was, well, nobody is prepared for something like this to happen, but it's sure a mess to the people that are left behind that have to clean up and take care of all that. So that is what this video is about. My mother passed away in 2016 and there was some things taken care of from her, but she was still married to my dad. So my dad being the spouse, he didn't have to go through probate and property issues or anything because everything was in both of their names. But my brother was divorced, and therefore he had everything solo in just his name. So he has one child under the age of 18, and then he had 2 adult children. And he left his estate to his children, with the oldest one being the person that took care of everything. So the one thing that was a big issue was he did everything online. So everything, all his utilities, all his accounts were done online. So everybody knows how easy that is, hassle-wise. But when somebody else has to step in and take care of your affairs, if you don't have account numbers and account names, emails, passwords, security questions, all of that down, it becomes a struggle for the people that have to close out accounts, change things out, cash things out, do all those kind of things, because we found that trying to take care of the utilities was online with passwords and we didn't know any of them. And everything we guessed just got us locked out. So when you call and tell them what's happening and that they need to do this and this, well, they're quick to turn it off, but they can't tell you if there's money owed or if it's paid up to a certain date, because you don't know any of the passwords or security questions on the account. So that made it kind of frustrating, really bad. The same thing with the bank account. He had everything, his Social Security, disability was going directly in there, and that was no issue. We had that stopped. But anything else with the bank account, until they could see the will and the death certificate, and we didn't know that we needed as many death certificates that we needed. They're not willing to discuss anything with us. So they want to get the will and see who is in charge of his account. And then they will send a packet of paper to that person who has to fill out the papers, sign some releases, and take that back to the bank with an original death certificate. They wouldn't take a copy. So it was a lot of running back and forth. And had I had known what we know now, we would have done things a whole lot different. So let me go through. There's 8 things that I came up with that if you especially have children, if you have any type of property, bank accounts, anything, give this one last gift, I would call it, to the family members that have to take care of this. And you never know, you could something could happen, and let's hope not, but you can die in a car accident, you can die in a plane crash, you can drown, you can choke, you can, there's just so many things that happen unexpectedly. And imagine the grief around your immediate family, and then they have to take care of everything. So these are the eight steps that I'm going to share with you that if you do, it will make the grieving process much easier for your loved ones. So number one is to make sure that you have a living will. It's also known as a healthcare directive. It allows a person to state their own end-of-life medical treatment and care. Then the three things that need to be in that living will are life support issues, life-sustaining treatment, and your end-of-life wishes. And it makes it so, for example, with my brother, he needed to go on a ventilator. And being that deprived of oxygen, he was very confused and wasn't sure of what was happening. They asked the family. And not just me, they asked me, my dad, and then called and talked to both of his adult children. They needed to get, the sense of what the family felt that he wanted, because he didn't have any of that, so they didn't know. The document does not hold any bearings once you're gone. This is only merely for like the do not resuscitate issue, those kind of things. And it's for your doctors and the hospitals to be able to support your desires and your wants when it comes to that end stage of your decision, so your family doesn't have to make that decision for you. Number two would be a medical power of attorney. And this isn't so much like a living will. This here it allows you to select a person that makes a healthcare decision on your behalf when you cannot. So like if you couldn't speak, if you were in a coma, or if you were in the middle of surgery and something happened, they have to ask permission to somebody to be able to, should they do this or should they do that? Those kind of things. Now, if it came down to like a do not resuscitate, or you didn't want to be brought back from life, you already have that decision with your living will. But this is other concerns that they may have, that you would normally make that decision. So it doesn't give that person the ability to make your decisions while you're still here. It's only while you're incapacitated that you can't physically or mentally make the decision on your own. Number three is your last will and testament. That is just a simple document that outlines what you want to happen to your real estate and any of your personal belongings. You designate somebody in that will be your person that takes care of everything. Make sure that the will gets read. Make sure that your beneficiaries get what you want and helps them take care of everything. Some states, like the state I'm in, South Carolina, requires, even with a will, that everything has to go to probate for a year. But during that year, that one person that you designate will still be able to function, and like if you have a business or property, rental properties, anything, or even just a house of your own, it allows them to still be able to take care of your expenses, your paychecks, or your rents collected, or taxes, any of those kind of things. Without a will, it's pretty sticky, and if you have a spouse, so it would mostly automatically go to the spouse. But if you have children, let's say children from a previous marriage, and you want to include anybody that you want to benefit from the things that you have, because you can't take them with you. So if you want to divide them between all of your children, that's where you're going to need a will. Let's see. Most of these documents also have to be notarized. Now, I took ours to the UPS, those little small UPS places that are in like little strip malls, and I took them in there and they notarized 2 pages for me for $5. So, and then now that's a legal document. You also need to find out, look up your states, because these documents are also state specific. So, you know, where all that they need to go. Like, some states require that your wills be filed at the clerk of the court, probate court, or where your deeds and records for your property are. Some to an attorney, and some don't need to be filed at all as long as there's an original copies throughout several people. Now, in the state of South Carolina, our state does not regulate where they need to be. It's just that whoever's in charge of the will, you have 30 days to get it to probate court and file the paperwork for that. Or that person could be fined for not filing the will. And everything is held and stays in probate for a year. So any of your creditors, anybody that you owe money to, has 1 year to put a claim on your real estate if you owe them money. So usually it takes about 8 months. So between 9 and 12 months, they'll release the estate and probate will release it, and it'll be able to go to where you designate it to go to. But during that time, somebody still has to make the mortgages and the payments and the taxes and the utilities and all of those things. So number 4, I would say that you need a general and financial power of attorney. And this is a person that you are going to trust, obviously, to act on your behalf to handle your affairs, your financial, medical, guardianship, taxes, those kinds of things. Because if you become incapacitated, whether you could end up being in a coma, get Alzheimer's, get dementia, some kind of disease stricken, you're still alive, but unable to take care of your affairs. So you designate one person that can have general and financial power of attorney over you in the event that you are incapacitated and can't do it yourself. Because once you get to that point, let's just say you're elderly and you have Alzheimer's or dementia, you're there, but you're not of sound mind, and somebody else can swoop in on you and have the papers drawn up for them to take care of it. So it's better that you decide who's going to be that person that can step in and take care of stuff for you. And number 5, if you have children, it would be in your best interest for those children that you designate in writing what happens to them in the event that something happens to you or both of the parents of the children. It needs to be designated, because I have seen family members fight over where the children are going to be, and I have seen how devastated the children are already going to be dealing with the loss of their parents and the unknown. Where are they going to live? Who's going to take care of them? And then to hear everybody else fighting around them is going to make them very uncomfortable. And this is going to be a hard thing for the kids to have to understand, comprehend, and deal with emotionally. And you can take all that uncertainty out of it by, number 1, if your kids are a little bit older, you can tell them what your wishes are. You can always tell them, if anything happens to me, blah, blah, this is what's going to happen. This is what you're going to live with. Make sure that the other people know and they're in agreement with it. And, you know, the more your family members know that this is done and taken care of, the less fighting and the less complicated it will be for the children. Let's see. Having to deal with losing the parents, that's hard. You want them it's just a peace of mind and knowing that your children, even though as difficult as it will be, that you can still give them a smooth transition to what the rest of their life will be like. Number 6 is your bank accounts and your life insurance. The bank accounts is what we had the most problem with for my brother. And bank accounts and life insurance usually do not go into a will. because life insurance is already, you have a beneficiary, so that's already taken care of. Usually bank accounts, if you're married and your spouse is on the account with you, then there's no problem. What happens is when a spouse dies, they take in the death certificate, it automatically goes to that other spouse, it becomes theirs. There's no interruption, no probate, no nothing with that. But if you don't, normally they will ask you for a beneficiary when you open up an account. Some do, some don't say anything. And you know, it just depends, but it's best if you go in and you check. The two things that you want to make sure is if there is no beneficiary, to make sure that you assign somebody. You can ask for your account to be payable upon death to this person, and they would sign blah, blah, blah. That way your account automatically goes to whom you want it to. Or you can ask for a TOD, which is transferable on death. And there again, it'll just go to where you want it to go to. So the funds are accessible to whomever you decide. If you have life insurance, always, especially if you've had it for a while, check to make sure your beneficiary information is up to date. Also, even if you can't afford life insurance, then try to look up for a policy, a bare minimum one of just like $10,000, because that will, and you can instruct this to happen, but that will take care of the cover of the cost of your actual death, the funeral, all of those kinds of things. And it may not cover all of it, but it will cover a good part of it. So you don't have family members all stressing and trying to figure out what they're going to do. The other thing about that is because funeral arrangements, plots, headstones, that's a big help if you go and take care of that yourself. It is an expense, so if you can't afford to do that, then opt for that $10,000 life insurance. That'll help take care of that. You can even write yourself a basic obituary and put one of your best photos with it and have all that stuff ready together. You never know what will happen or when. You just want to try and make things as best you can for your loved ones. And we didn't realize how much everything was. My father ended up paying for the funeral home here. He ended up having him cremated. Now, when you look at the itemized, it was like $4,001. There was cost for transferring the body from the hospital to the funeral home in the morgue. There's funeral home expenses because there's employees that work there that have to do things. There's refrigeration cost to keep him in storage until you figure out what's happening and what to do with the body. Then there's caskets, the makeup, the clothing for the viewing. There's a headstone, memorial services, there's an obituary, there's internment into the ground, also cost for someone to go out there and do that. There's lawn keepers, there's flowers, there's death certificates. And for cremation, there's also cost for permits and urns, and there's just a lot of things that are all crammed in and piled in there. Now, my family's plot is in Montana, so he needs to be transferred still. That's going to be another $3,800 when we get there. And this is just for a simple cremation, which is $7,000. So, and I'm sure for a funeral with a casket and a viewing and it's going to be it could be up to twice as much more. If you could take care of those kind of things, that would make things so much easier, because within 24 hours of your death, all of this funeral stuff, all of that starts coming into play. And sometimes it happens really fast. So if you have the opportunity to take care of that, and all of these things and all of these documents, and even just a basic obituary, because families will tend to fight over the decisions and what's going to be done and what's going to be said. And if you have all of this done and together and put aside, then that takes the guesswork and arguing out. Because the one thing I remember both when my mom passed and now when my brother passed was even something as simple as when the doctors call everybody and ask or tell, they give you updates and the decision has to be made, they asked us, the decision needs to be made, about turning the machines off. Families were fighting. And the ones that I saw get hurt the worst over the fighting was my brother's children. They didn't want to turn the machines off because what if, he lives? What if, they don't want, your children don't want, you don't want your children to have to live with all their life was, did they make a mistake? Did they turn the machine off too fast? There's all these things and then everybody's fighting, and that does not help them at all. My dad thought that it should be his decision because it was his son. During my brother's stay in the hospital, he kept telling them, call my sister, ask my sister, get her opinion. So the doctors kept calling me for information, and then I had to facilitate, to his adult children, because legally in this state, his adult children was to make the decision. They've never, and they're both 20, 21, 24, never had to deal with death like this before, so they didn't know. And on top of, they've just been back in his life for a few years, it's like they were overwhelmed. So, just having all this kind of stuff just makes things a whole lot easier, and the decisions. Okay, so in number 8, and this is probably one of the most important parts, is because of how everything is going now with the internet, everything's able to be done online. It makes it very, very hard for someone to have to tie up all the loose ends when there's no list for accounts, account numbers, passwords, security questions. There's account numbers, there's nothing. So if you could do a master list, you can keep it hid and put away, update it and change it when you need to, but update it, put it away, and keep it with whoever you designate to take care of your finances, whether it's your spouse or somebody that you trust. It's not something that anybody needs to see beforehand. It's just something that you need to do because it makes things much easier. The other thing that we didn't know was you need an original death certificate for almost everything. And we ordered 3 because we didn't know. And come to find out, the funeral home orders those for you, and they do that paperwork with you. They do let's see, death certificates. They also do obituary for you. You sit with them and you take care of all that. However, now even the funeral home, it's $3 per death certificate. Now, if you wait and then we ordered 3, so that was $9. And then we were done with them, and we just recently finished with everything that my brother had, because it was password issues and account issues that we had with so much stuff. We had to go back, and we have had to order 6 more death certificates. And in the state of South Carolina, when you order a death certificate or a birth certificate, depending on what county and where you're getting them from, they're between $15 and $25 a piece. So it is easier and better to make sure that your family knows. Just order 10 right off the bat. You can always give them, if there's leftovers, you can give them out. Family, kids, put packages together for the kids, and you know, things like that. But it's better to get them up front than to have to pay $25 a piece, because we had to get 7 more after that 3. So it definitely is a lot of work. You don't realize how much it is. And then the last thing which we need to still do now is there's 3 credit bureaus, 3 main credit bureaus in the United States. We have to send a death certificate to all 3 of them. You do not want somebody to, because there's people out there that do this, they follow the death announcements that are in the paper, and then they steal their name and their information and create all kinds of accounts. But what happens with that is, until those accounts, if those accounts are flagged right away with death certificates, they stop it. They don't allow that to happen. But if it happens before you get all this done, in states like mine where there is a probate and they hold your house and anything else you have in probate hostage to see if there's anybody that you owe money to, these people that run up make claims and they open accounts and they just rack it up, the credit card companies and those people put claims on the house. So now the house will have to get sold in order to pay off the creditors that have been racked up. Now, if it is fixed before that happens, then they'll wipe it out, but it's an extra added that you don't need to go for, because identity theft happens very commonly with people that just pass away. So, you know, you just got to make sure that all of those kind of things are taken care of, and it is much, much easier if it's done and together. You want to make more than 1 copy of everything that you do and make sure that your family members know who's taking care of your estate and who's going to get your kids and who's going to, you know, if you have a spouse and your children is with your spouse, you kind of know, but you know, you just never know what's going to happen in the future. And to save your whole family and your loved ones time and anguish and heartache, these are the 8 things that you can do to help them out. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I pray and hope that you don't have to deal with this. It's not easy, and it is subjects that people don't like to talk about. It's hard to fathom or think about your loved one or your spouse being gone and you having to deal with this, and that is the #1 reason why people don't usually have all this ready. And the biggest thing that I also found that could help you with all of this, and it is free. It is called eforms.com. You can get these documents and click in your state and download it, the PDF file, to your computer, and then you have it there, and then you type in all your answers and print it. But it's there on your hard drive too, once you download it, but it's free. It has all the forms I just talked about. The only thing that it doesn't have is a list, and if you can make a list of your passwords and stuff, you just print it and put it away. You can, you know, get rid of what's on your computer so other people don't see it, but it is free. So you can download the forms, and I will leave that link down below in my description as well. So thanks for watching, everybody. I hope this helps you out. Have a great week, and I'll see you in a few days.